The House of the Dead was an arcade hit, a light gun rail shooter where the player's dispatching zombies and extravagant boss characters, all while reviving with the power of quarters. But today, we aren't talking about the House of the Dead itself. Today we're going to cover the campy, yet popular spin-off, The Typing of the Dead. The Typing of the Dead is a somewhat educational game following the story of House of the Dead 2. As the name implies, instead of using your firepower to remove all the undead in your way, the player uses the power of typing. Released in 1999 to arcades in Japan, it was eventually ported to Windows and the Sega Dreamcast in the year of 2001 for the United States, and the PS2 in Japan in 2004. Growing up during this time, for some reason, I only ever recalled it being on the Dreamcast. It was one of those games that my friends and I knew about and thought was really cool, but just never really had a chance to play. I only had one friend that even owned a Dreamcast at that time, so it was sadly not something I ever really got to experience. The game was developed by WoW Entertainment and published by Sega. The front of the US cover showcases a zombie with various text behind him and a bloody keyboard on the front. It gets the point across even if it is a bit basic. The back showcases 3 screenshots and an enemy front and center, death sentence, across the top. Your rapid fire typing skills spell doom for the undead in this utterly odd, totally challenging takeoff on House of the Dead 2. When you're battling zombies in a nightmare come true, 10 trigger fingers are definitely better than 2. Which honestly is a pretty fun paragraph to grab your attention. 10 better than 2? Hell yeah. Face the horror, learn to type, improve your typing skills, battle the big guys. Cooperate or compete are the 5 taglines they have to sell you on. 2 of which, learn and improve, I think are a bit too similar. The game was rated M in the States due to animated blood and gore and animated violence. The disc is a bright red with 2 zombies coming right for you. Emblazoned across the top in a gold hue is the Typing of the Dead. Honestly, this disc looks amazing and is a good example of great disc art. Playing it today, however, is still a blast. The game is just plain fun. And releasing this in arcades was likely a good moneymaker. It's addictive in just a weird way. I'm not sure anyone would think that a typing teaching game would be this fun and addictive, or interesting to play, but it absolutely is. And gamers and reviewers agree. The Typing of the Dead received very favorable responses to its release. IGN proclaimed it to be one of the coolest Dreamcast games to date, and gave it a 9 out of 10. And Planet Dreamcast gave it an 8, proclaiming, if nothing else, Typing of the Dead is a kooky, fun, and innovative, and worthwhile addition to any Dreamcast library. Provided you own one of those keyboards. Overall, according to Metacritic, it landed at an 83 overall for critic reviews, and is sitting at a 7.1 for user reviews, which is pretty high, especially for a typing game. However, that comment from Planet Dreamcast does point out a large bit of what might make the limited appeal of a typing teaching game even more limited. That needed extra accessory to play this game on Dreamcast: the Dreamcast keyboard. The Dreamcast keyboard was sold for $25 at the time, and was able to be used across a good amount of games for the console. However, I feel like the ones that would be most remembered are Typing of the Dead, Phantasy Star Online, and the various web browsers that were released for the console. I plan on doing a deeper dive into the keyboard and mouse accessories in the future, so please subscribe if you want to see that when it eventually drops. $25 back then would have been about $45 today, so not an insane purchase, but could have been prohibitive if you didn't plan on using it for more than one game. The Typing of the Dead really played into the humor of its premise, replacing any and all firearms in the game with giant Dreamcast backpacks attached to a Dreamcast keyboard that your character had on the front, all powered by one large AA battery. It makes cutscenes absolutely hilarious and absurd, and is one of my favorite additions to the game. The graphics were not updated from the original arcade game, however, so they do look dated for the time, but that's not really important since the gameplay and novelty of the idea are what's fun and really why you're playing it. The game does progressively get harder as you go along, testing your typing ability and really pushing you to increase your skills and become a master at touch typing, something that really can be an invaluable skill if used. I for one am very happy I know how to do it, as it makes typing out these scripts even easier. Thank you, Typing of the Dead. Throughout the game, the boss battles can also throw you some curveballs. One being the Hydra boss, who asks you questions you must answer correctly in order to deal optimal damage without being hit. The campy and poor voice acting does give good laughs, and it adds to that slightly addictive experience that feels fun to play and light on frustrations. It's extremely easy to pick up and play, which is a great signal of a good arcade title. The arcade release of the game is an absolute sight to behold and a joy to actually play. It almost seems absurd to see an arcade cabinet sporting 2 full-size keyboards, and even today, the one I was lucky to play on was still in good shape, and I had no issues when typing on the keyboard. I can luckily say the same for the Dreamcast keyboard as well. It seems like these have actually stood the test of time to some degree and still work pretty functionally as long as they were taken care of. There are quite a few speedrunners for the game, all of which utilize the PC port. I was only able to find one Dreamcast run of the game on any of the categories, and none played on the PS2. This does make sense because you can find the game online as abandonware, and load times would be best on PC, which would only assist the player's time. As well as being able to use a keyboard, of course, that isn't 25 years old, would likely also be helpful. Overall, I think the Typing of the Dead is an extremely fun, quirky, and interesting way to experience House of the Dead 2. I want to stress that I think you should play House of the Dead 2 before Typing of the Dead. However, it isn't really necessary. I just feel like some of the charm of killing zombies with text is lost if you hadn't had your quarters demolished from it from the original arcade game, or at least experienced using the light guns back in the day. The game does get difficult and will absolutely test your typing prowess, and can definitely help you improve if you really keep at it and work through the game. It's an absolute blast, and honestly, any excuse to experience something on the Dreamcast, a console which I and so many others missed out on, is entertaining. I would recommend spending even just a few hours on this blast from the past. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and subscribe so you can join us again for another dive into the wonderful world of gaming.